This is Scott Becker with the Becker Private Equity and Business Podcast. Today's subject is Peloton hits the brakes. So we'll give you 3 quick points on this. 1, Peloton's down about 15% so far to date as it missed its earnings estimates for the quarter. 2, anybody that's a Peloton user, this is the unfortunate vicious cycle of companies. It's what we saw with Bed Bath & Beyond. As Bed Bath & Beyond got more and more in financial trouble, their product, their merchandising, how they dealt with things also got worse and worse. And that's what we seem to be seeing with Peloton currently. So as they got clearer about their business model, they're not really trying to sell bikes, they're trying to sell subscriptions. The unfortunate thing is their subscription patching got worse and worse. The third thing, which is a great, fascinating lesson for business that Netflix is going through, that all these subscription services are going through. All of them are trying to get away from people pirating subscriptions. So, for example, originally we had bought a bike in Chicago. We have a bike that my daughter has in New York. And for a long time, we were sharing passwords, and they seemed to be fine with it, and we didn't think we were doing anything wrong. Now, of course, after a couple of years, they asked us to have separate Peloton accounts for the 2 different bikes, and so we amped it up. The problem being, they're so worried about piracy and policing piracy, and I get that they've made it impossible to log onto the bike. So every time we go to log onto the bike, it's the longest challenge, the biggest headache. And so it's got to the spot where family members don't want to use the bike because it's become a huge cluster to use the bike. So sort of there's lessons here in this Peloton situation. 1 is never get too high on your horse. 2, the stock has dropped 15% today. 3rd, there is unfortunately a vicious cycle of as things go wrong, it's harder and harder to then get to a spot where you could invest in the company to make it better. Finally, 4th is this point on policing your customers. In a subscription business, this is very important. It's almost like being in the collections business. You have to do it, but you got to find a way to do it well so it doesn't end up totally ruining the user experience. We have found the Peloton user experience to be just an absolute debacle. So it's like when I saw Peloton got killed in their earnings and the stock's down 15% today, I was not surprised one bit. And I bet a couple of our family members who have trouble logging into Peloton all the time and find it to be the biggest headache will find this to be somewhat schadenfreude or somewhat karma that now their stock is getting blitzed. In any event, thank you so much for listening to the Becker Private Equity and Business Podcast. I couldn't help but talk about the Peloton story. I think there's so many lessons in it. And when I saw how they got crushed today, I find it so fascinating. We cheer for them, not against them, but we have found this customer experience stuff gone down the toilet, so to speak. The brakes have been hit. It's going horrible. Thank you for listening to the Becker Private Equity and Business Podcast.